Well, hi gang, welcome to another great night with the dirt bike community. We're going to do something fun tonight, something that's kind of near and dear to my heart. We're going to talk about Super Moto. So something that, it's a great experience to do if you've got the chance to get out there and do it. A lot of times Super Moto is held on a lot of local go-kart tracks, so it makes it a little easier to kind of get to some of those venues. And maybe you might not have a big, huge racetrack near you, but a lot of times you'll have a go-kart track out there. So we're going to kind of talk about some things you can change up on your bike a little bit and turn it into one of those little beasties, and a little bit about the history of Supermoto as well. Not too many people know about that. So Supermoto was actually started in 1991 by an outfit called Galera. They're an Italian manufacturer. And they started out with their Supermoto bikes, and basically they were taking dirt bikes and kitting them out with road race wheels and doing some special tricky stuff on them. And that's really kind of where it created. And then Husqvarna, KTM, Cagiva, all the big makers, Ducati had a Hypermotard. They've all made some sort of a variation of a Supermoto. And if you've got a dirt bike and you can put some road race wheels on it and tires, and you basically got a Supermoto bike. So they're a lot of good times. So we're going to kind of do some comparos on what you can change out on a bike and kind of go from there. So basically, this is a stock DRZ 400 S model. It's built for the dirt, and you can tell it's got some knobbier tires on it. You could throw some knobbier ones on there if you wanted. This is straight off our showroom floor, very straight rate, stock exhaust, and it's got the turn signals and all that, and factory foot pegs and coolant hoses, the whole 9 yards. So if you've got a platform like this, you could actually take a Husqvarna. I race with buddies on their Huskies and on their KTMs and gases, and got a few friends on their Suzukis as well, Hondas. I mean, basically any dirt bike you can turn into a Supermoto. You just got to get the wheel setup combo for it. And you eliminate a lot of things. Mirrors go away. You can change your grips. You can get into cooler brake lever and clutch levers, those kind of things. So if we take a look at this, basically we can see basically the whole stock form of it. And then if we pan to our right, this is actually my Supermoto bike that I race on. So this is a 2007 DRZ 400 SM, and it's no longer in the stock form anymore. You can obviously tell it's got the cool graphics package on it. I'm very blessed. The Edge Power Sports, they're one of my sponsors. That's very proud of running our logo on my bike, and they support me, so I'm definitely supporting back as well. And it's fun to have some sponsorship behind it. And just recently, I picked up a sponsorship from a local window tinting company called Pro Tint, and I've known the owners, Kelly Fisher and Ryan Baxter since high school. So they contacted me last week and asked me if I needed some race tires for my bike for the season, and super grateful. It's funding is always a hard thing to come by when you're getting into this. Whoever said racing was cheap, they lied. It's not the cheapest sport in the world, but if you can manage to do it, it's a lot of fun. So some things you're going to see different that I've put together on this bike. Obviously, I've got the wraparound hand guards. I believe these are a Zeta hand guard. These actually have a turn signal assembly in them too, so you could street legal with this. This bike was actually street legal when I first got it, and then just kind of started doing some crazy stuff on it. Some updates you can do on handling. Braided brake lines definitely gives you a lot better feedback on your brakes. And not gonna lie, I love the DRZ 400 brakes. They are just a lot of feedback to them. You can feel every little granular of the brake pad rolling through your fingertips. And that's actually one of the things where I really gain a lot of my advantage out on the racetrack, is I can run down deep into a turn and I can brake really late with a lot of good feedback with the bike too. So really helpful to have a good set of brakes on there, get some good brake lines. My changes out that I've done up on the brakes is I've actually, when I spin the bike around, we'll kind of show some of that. But I run different brake pads in the bike. I actually run some EBC brake pads, and I've got Moto Master wave rotors on the bike as well. and we'll kind of see some of those comparos here in a second. Some different things you can do on the bike as well is I've got aftermarket levers on the bike. This one, I believe it's just kind of a cheapy Amazon guy. It was actually on the bike when I got it. It works good, so I didn't change it. My clutch lever, I actually changed to a Pro Taper clutch lever. Gives me a lot of good feedback. I get a lot of adjustability out of the bike, so it really helps out on that. Now, one thing you're going to notice from this bike compared to the factory DRZ is that big headlight assembly. That headlight assembly weighs a ton. Basically, it actually attaches to your fork legs up here and all this, so all that gets yanked off, and this is actually a RMZ 450 number plate, so it works out really well, bolts right up onto the bike, and it fits really well too. I think it kind of suits the bike. Front fender, I've changed to a Cherubies front fender on it versus the big hulky guy over there, so it gives a little sportier look to it and a little narrower feel to it as well. And then as far as the graphics, it's a local company, Blitz MX Designs. It's actually a buddy of mine, Jeff Pinelli. He did all the graphics work and did all the designing for me on it and put my name up on the logo and everything. And if you've got a graphics company that you can work with, and a lot of times you can sit down with them, you can do some customized designing on it and really kind of throw your own flavor in it too. So it makes it kind of fun. The number I've had for years, it just kind of stuck with me. It was actually a number that got registered to me and I just kind of held to it. So there's no real significance behind it or anything. It's just my number. So and then if we kind of look on the exhaust system here, compared to the factory DRZ 400. I've got a Yoshimura RS3 exhaust system on it. Now, some people wrap their exhaust. I prefer to wrap mine. Some people don't. One big advantage on heat wrapping your exhaust is it actually dissipates a lot of your heat on the bike. It'll actually transfer all that heat and blow it out of the exhaust versus radiating it through the motorcycle. One of the things that on your rear shock, if you don't have that heat wrapped, any of that heat coming off your exhaust will superheat your rear shock fluid, then that can actually cause issues. So it gives you a big advantage if you can keep that heat down and really helps it out quite a bit. When the bike is running, I can actually tap my hand on the exhaust and it won't take skin off. That would actually do some major damage if you touch that thing when it was hot. So gives you some positives on what you can do with the bike and how it's going to operate for you. Then if we kind of look a little deeper on some of the little goodies, just some race spec things. Since I'm running on the racetrack, you've got to run axle sliders on the bike just in case something bad goes down. That way you don't carve up the track. And if you notice, I've actually got all my pinch bolts safety pinned as well. That's a requirement that you need. That way those things don't come vibrating out and then you're throwing hardware, maybe a loose axle as you're racing in that environment. So just little things like that. If we kind of take a look up at the radiator here, you can see that the radiator cap has been safety as well. And then also my oil cap is safety wired as well. And if you really got deep into it, a lot of the banjo bolt fittings for the brake lines are all safety wired. So none of this stuff can come off. Basically, it's going to keep all those fluids contained into the bike versus spilling out over and causing an issue with another rider on the track. And honestly, if you're racing on a track, you don't want to be that guy dumping fluid down on the track, because then you usually end up shutting the race session down and everyone's looking bad at you, and it costs a lot of money to race. So if you can definitely avoid those situations, a lot better off. As we kind of travel further down the bike a little bit, and we can kind of take a look inside the steering column right here. These little red spacers, those are actually called rubber killers. And what they do, normally there's a rubber damper in there to where your bars flex a little bit. These take all that out, and that way you get a lot more finite feedback on the system, and you can actually feel what's going on with the bike. You can get those for any bike out there. They're just called rubber killers, and they just eliminate the rubber dampener in the system. A lot of the cool part is you're actually shaving weight off the bike too. So if you're looking to kind of trim a little bit of weight off the bike, that definitely helps out. And if you take a really close look, you'll notice if you've got a Husky or a KTM sitting at home, or a gas, I run that hardware. It's actually lighter and stronger than the older factory Suzuki hardware on there. So just little weight saving tricks you can do. If you've got the budget, you could go titanium if you want. One of my buddies that I race with, he's got a Husky 450 that he runs, and he just went bonkers on titanium stuff. So he's got titanium axles and titanium mounting hardware. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do to trim the weight off the bike, and gives you some bragging rights, I guess, as well. So then if we kind of travel further down the bike, we can kind of take a look at some of the little goodies down here. Obviously, I've got my axle sliders here. Then any of the axle bolts, those are all safety wired too, so they won't backspin off. These are the wave rotors I run. These are actually a Moto Master wave rotor, so they a lot better heat displacement, better braking in the system as well. So gives you a little better braking action on that as well. So definitely helps out in that process. Now I'm actually going to spin the bike around, and then we can see some of the other fun stuff that is done on these bikes. I can delicately do this without any chaos. There we go. All right. So, kind of getting into the guts of the thing, some major changes that I've actually done on this bike. Larger carburetor. This is an FCR carburetor. They usually come with a vacuum diaphragm carburetor. This is actually a 41 millimeter. Some people go with 39 millimeter carburetors. I actually upped mine to a 41 because there's some magic stuff going on in the cylinder head as well, and we'll kind of talk about that in a second. Some people might ask what this little catch can is. If you're racing on a track, you need to keep all of your fluids contained. That way, if you ever go down on the track, you're not going to spill any fluid or any coolant down onto the track, and that way it'll cause bad issues. So self-containing all the overflow for the carburetor, and then my overflow coolant bottle, that line is actually dumping into my air box, and my air box is sealed at the bottom so that it won't leak out as well. And if you kind of dig around and kind of look at just some of the little stuff, safety wired front sprocket bolt right there, so you don't lose that. Oil lines, there's a lot of little hidden safety wire things that are going on inside the frame area there that you really can't spot out, and just little things like that. The side stand, it does get taken off when I go on the track. If you are racing on the track, a lot of tracks will let you get away with just zip tying that side stand up to the frame as well. That way it doesn't come down. But if you can eliminate the side stand, that just gives you better cornering clearance. Obviously, you can see I've got some foot peg sliders on there. Those get used up quite a bit. So a lot of steep lean angles on those things, and just a lot of good time. A little trick that I discovered that I really wasn't aware of, but for years I was always running street bikes and just doing a lot of road racing, teaching out on the road race course. Well, one of my buddies, he was running a non-O-ring chain on his bike, and I noticed that it doesn't hang up as much as the O-ring chain. So that's going to rob your horsepower. So I opted to go with a Pro Taper non-O-ring chain this year. It's going to give me a little better freewheel on the bike, so things don't stick as much. And then let's see if I can find it. I'm going to rotate it around. Let me see if I can find the master link to it. If we look right here at this master link, notice it's safety wired. So that's one of the requirements as well. Or you can get away. Some tracks will let you just put in a big goop of silicone on there, so that master link doesn't kind of unclip, and then you're not having issues out there as well. So a lot of little hidden things on the bike that you might notice, you might not. Front caliper bolts, these are all safety wired as well, so a lot of drilling and prep work for that. Same on your pinch bolts up here, these are all safety wired and pinned as well. And then that's also a big front Moto Master wave rotor that I'm running on this. Some other little tricky stuff you can do to your bike that just suspension wise. These are actually SKF or SKS fork seals, and they actually have less stiction on the system. So a lot of your factory fork seals, they'll have a little minor stiction as the suspension's working up and down. These are a low friction seal on there, so it's actually going to help the suspension work a lot better feedback on the system as well. So just little goodies that you can do to the bike. And then changed out the coolant lines. They look cool, they're red, so it kind of matches the whole theme of the bike, but they are a silicone CV4 coolant hoses on there. So, and then if we kind of pop open the air box here, you can see what's going on in here. Pretty straight rate. I've got a twin air filter in there. There is a 3x3 modded opening in the top of the air box. If you're a DRZ owner, you know what the 3x3 mod is. It's just a 3" by 3" hole cut in the top of the air box, so it gives you a little more intake for the system. So some little tricky things you can do to it. I'm actually planning on getting another air panel or lid for it, and I'm going to actually do some venting in it as well, just so I can get a little better feed in there. Now, something that haven't really told anybody, not too many people know about this bike, but this bike was actually a consistent third place winner all year long. I've got a grip load of third place trophies for it. It's an awesome ride. I had a blast on it, but I was tired of taking for third place. So what I did is actually had the head port and polished, and I've gone to a 434 kit on the cylinder head. So it's pushing out a little more horsepower, a little more zap to it. So I'm hoping, if all goes well, it'll start getting me some first place trophies this year and be a little more competitive in the situation. So it's done me well so far, so no complaints on any of it. Then some other things you can do on the bike. This one I've actually eliminated the rear tail light, so that way it just shaves weight. Plus, if you're running on the track, you don't want to be telegraphing when you're slowing down for those turns. It just gives you an advantage to be a little more racy, sneaky in those situations. So all these things that I've actually done to the bike, if I wanted to bring it back to stock, I could bolt all those things right back to stock. That's actually one of the things that I really strive to do when I build one of these bikes, is I don't want to chop anything up to where it's not reversible. There are two things that I can't reverse on this. On the factory DRZ, there's a couple little tabs right here on the swing arm for the factory chain guard. I don't run that, and I really hated those big chunky tabs hanging up, so I actually ground them off smooth, sanded the swing arm down to where you can't even see where those tabs are. And then that's that. Oh, and I removed the helmet lock as well, because I really don't lock the helmet up to the bike. But other than that, I could bolt everything back to factory and run it as a factory bike if I wanted to. And that's just a lot of stuff you can do to the bike. One thing I would really encourage with people is, if you've never had the chance to build a bike or get into it, I really encourage it. It's one of the things that you can take a bike down to the frame, which I've done on this bike. I've done on quite a few bikes, and put it back together, and before you know it, you're out ringing it out up in a mountain trail or ripping across a desert trail, something like that, or if you get the chance, you're out racing this thing and competing with them. And there's something special about knowing that you've actually taken that bike out completely apart. You've had every nut and bolt in your hand. You've worked all the bearings. You've put it all back together, and then you've got something that you can go out and just create a whole bunch of memories on and a bunch of trophies on. And it's kind of hard to see, but that's actually my toolbox back there. All those medallions right there, those are all third place medallions. So you can see it's a consistent third place bike for last season, but I'm striving to make a little better result this year and hopefully just have some good times. It's a pretty good time out there. Luckily, yes, did you have a question?
Hey, what does it cost to run for a weekend?
Oh, for a weekend, track fees, you're looking at about right around $175 for a track day. And that'll get you your practice time, get you out on the track, and then you'll be able to race for those days. And really the biggest expenses are tires, a good set of road slicks. You're about $430 for the set. You can totally get away with just some good sticky street compound tires. You don't have to go with a set of road slicks. I ran all last year with just DOT tires on the bike. I didn't have tire warmers. I didn't have slicks or anything like that. This was all progressive, so you can get into the sport fairly cheap. I mean, all in with all the crazy stuff that I've done on this bike, I'm into the bike total, even purchasing the bike, $6,500. So, and that's with engine work and everything, and I've done all that stuff to it. So you don't have to break the bank. I think I paid, $2,800 for the bike originally, and I was actually out running it just the way it was set up right from the get-go, and I just progressively wanted to get the bike faster. So you don't have to invest a bunch. I'd say the biggest thing that you're going to have to invest in is your safety gear. You can ride on a lot of tracks on your moto gear. Ideally, race leathers are going to be the best because you are running higher speeds. You're going from asphalt to dirt to asphalt, and you'll probably be looking for, I don't know, your first weekend out's probably going to be your most expensive weekend out. You might blow about $500 on just kind of getting set up. That's after you've bought your tires and everything. But you got your lunch, your gas, hanging out with your friends, maybe buying some drinks and this and that, and keeping everyone hydrated throughout the day. And so you might spend about $500 in a race weekend. And then if you get into road racing, like sport bikes, that kind of thing, you can easily blow through $1,000 in a weekend on a road race bike, and that's no exaggeration. Tires are the big expense on road racing bikes. You can chew up 2-3 sets of tires on a road race weekend. This set of tires, this will last me probably most of the race season. Probably the last race of the year, I'll probably have to put a fresh set on, but I'll be able to run those at the beginning of the next season as well. So it's a pretty affordable sport. Yep.
So here in Utah, where do you want to get into? What do we do?
So best place to get a good contact is I'm actually one of the members of one of the oldest sport bike clubs in the nation. It's called the Utah Sport Bike Association, or if you Google USBA, then you can get onto the site and you're going to start looking for Super Moto, and they're basically the Super Moto division is just kind of a little sliver of the Utah Sport Bike Association. That's going to give you all the info that you need, all your requirements. We race at a local racetrack called UMC. It was formerly Miller Motorsports Racing Club. They're out in Grantsville, Utah, and we race on the go-kart track. So it's a lot of fun. It's a huge family event. I mean, we've got wee little kids racing at 6 years old on their bikes, and they look like giant bobbleheads ripping around on their bikes. But I mean, everyone's out supporting them, rooting them on, and that's one thing that I really love is I really encourage parents to get their kids into racing. It's healthy, it's smart. They start thinking about pros and cons, and it's not one of these participation trophy things where you show up and you just get a prize. And listening to these kids, it's pretty impressive because they'll come off the track and they'll talk about how the front end was chattering and they had to check up a little bit, and they might not have gotten the win that race, but they know they're going to try something different next time when they go out. And this is all going on in their little noggins, and they're figuring this out, and they're realizing that everything has a consequence, and if they try a little harder next time, they're going to gain from it, and they might not get the win, but hey, at least they're out rocking it and have a good time, and they're actually learning pros and cons of it. Same thing as a seasoned rider, I'm always going out and trying to improve myself. One of the things that I'm struggling with is I've always been a road racer, so knee out, elbow out, and leaning in, and Supermoto is a totally different demon. So it's staying more upright on the bike and leaning the bike out, and trying to change my riding posture a little bit. I don't know if anybody follows any Supermoto. Hullbacker is one of my favorite riders out there, and I'm really trying to get some riding posture like him. So that's kind of my big goal, to ride like Hullbacker this year. So it's a little different thing. One of the things that I've always really appreciated about motorcycling, I love the environment. It's afforded me some great opportunities. This year I was actually asked to coach as a Supermoto coach, so I actually get to teach people how to ride these things and improve their skill set and have a good time. If you've never been in those kind of environments, check it out. Get on YouTube. Just look up Supermoto. If you've got a local track around you, go check it out. I know there's a lot of people in Utah that have never even gone to our track, and it's a world-class facility. It's that close to being able to run Formula One on that track, and people just don't go out there and check it out. So there's a lot of cool stuff out there. I think last weekend they had a huge drifting event and off-road event out there, and just a lot of different aspects of motorsports, and this is just just one of them that you can get into. It's one of the more economical ways of going out and racing. I know racing on the dirt can be a lot cheaper for local tracks. Jordan Valley is one of our local tracks. I think it's like 25 bucks to go out and race on their track. It's a good time. Chances of getting injured a lot higher because you're going off of big, massive jumps and a lot heavier ruts in the track and those kind of things. And I can honestly take this bike out and rally it hard and it gets dusty. And I'm still jumping and doing some crazy stuff on it, but that's as dirty as it gets. And I get to park it away pretty clean. It's not as abusive on the bike. And so I think it tends to make the bikes last a little longer. The one cool thing I love about this bike is I actually have a set of dirt tires that after I race my race weekend, I'll pull the road race tires off and I'll put the dirt tires on. And there's a lot of guys in the shop that I ride with, and we'll go out and ride dirt, and that's how I keep healthy. That's how I stay in shape for racing in the Super Moto, is going out and bouncing in the trees and doing single track riding and a lot of desert riding and those kind of things. So it's something that kind of all around it gives us big benefits, just so it keeps us healthier, keeps our heads sharper, especially as we get a little longer in the tooth and a little grayer in the hair. I think it definitely helps, keeps our heads a little more dialed in as well. Yeah, if you get the chance, it's not that expensive to get out there and get into it. You can actually get into it pretty affordably if you've got dirt gear. And I know Warp 9 is a local company that we use, and they sell worldwide. They'll actually make tires for you and or not tires, but they'll actually do a Super Moto setup for you and get your wheels built up for you. And they have spacers and all that, so they'll actually fit your bike. They've got a lot of cool stuff, titanium axles and nut and hardware, and you can really trick your bike out and shave weight in the process and really personalize the bike and make it your bike. And that's one of the great things about it, is you're out flogging a bike around and having a good time on it and really honing your craft in the sport, and just it's something that you've built, something that you've created and just had a good time on. And I'm sorry, I've never seen a motorcycle at a psychologist's office. They just don't exist. They're always out at the track. So it's kind of an old joke out there. But yeah, it's an amazing sport to get into. And even if you can't get into Supermoto, check it out. There's some cool tracks worldwide. There's some tracks that I want to go to out in Italy, and there's I think there's a couple in Thailand as well that I want to go check out. So yeah, this is just kind of our little thing that we do here. One of them, we're not only just into dirt and riding full motocross, we kind of like to change it up a little bit and get into some road race stuff and scrape our knees around the track a little bit and then go bouncing off in the dirt in the process. So hopefully this kind of gets your head going in a little different direction, and maybe thinking about some things you can do on your bikes, and maybe explore some different avenues of the motorcycles as well. And don't think it's just big bikes. There's small bikes out there, 85 cc, 65 cc's. I've seen a lot of different bikes out there, and they're all just as fun. So I mean, I've never seen anybody grumpy underneath a race helmet unless they've wadded their bike up and had a bad moment. But most time, everyone's having a good time and just laughing their butts off, and just something to kind of check it out. So, gang, this is just something we wanted to kind of throw at you, and maybe kind of get your heads looking in a little different direction at motorcycles. And if you get the chance, our first race day is May 7th out at UMC. There's no charge to go in and spectate. You can roll in there. It's animal friendly. If you've got a dog, you can roll in there and keep your dog on the leash. That's one thing that we do ask you. If you've never been out of the racetrack and kind of getting into that environment, keep in mind there's a lot of bikes ripping around and that type of thing, and you just want to keep your pets contained. Kids, bring them out. I want you to bring your kids out so they can explore that environment as well, and really get their heads kind of going in that direction too. And it's not just about getting dirty. It's just going out and flinging the bike around the road racetrack too. So I hope that was something that kind of jingles your bell, gang, and something, like I said, it's something that we're passionate about as well. And little background, I took third place in my class for last season, and Zach Barclay, who's one of our other lead techs that I work with, he took second in his class. So we do pretty well. So I think we've got some good heritage here at the Edge Power Sports, and we can continue it on. So gang, I know it's kind of short and sweet, and that's what we brought for you tonight, and I hope that kind of gets you excited for the coming race season that's going to be coming up. So hope to see you out there, and maybe we can introduce yourself to us if you see us rolling out there. Zach's bike is basically the twinner to mine, except his graphics are blue, white, and black. And I'm just super proud to be supported by the Edge and show our colors out there. Hopefully we see you out there, gang, and we'll see you next time out there too. Hope you have a great night. Thanks.